Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Psychic Kitchen podcast. Today we have Mr. Todd Medina with us in the house. How's everyone doing today?
Yeah, all good, man.
That's
Thanks for
a
coming on, brother.
good
Would your sort of your main channel is Soulology, isn't it? From what I can remember. Soulology. Is that right?
Soulology.
Soulology. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it was for a long time. It was for 12 years, I guess.
Oh, right.
Yeah. 2012 to 2023 December. I did a few shows. In 24, probably, like maybe 10 or 15. But we probably averaged about 60 a month, 55, 60 a month for several years. But it all kind of culminated with all this new energy that's coming in 2024 in my own life. You know what I mean? And so my wife and I, because of COVID and, whatever, the Matrix or whatever, we were apart for 37 months. I couldn't get out of the country. She couldn't get into the country. We met on the Canadian border for 30 days in a park where you could come from each side, but you couldn't cross the border. So we were like, yeah. And then we decided, kind of got a download to come to Puerto Vallarta, and here we are, 3 or 4 months later. So the reason that's related to Soulology is because, Soulology is there. Soulology is a consciousness. Soulology's whatever you want to call it. And I'm not Soulology. Morgan's not Soulology. We spend a lot of time and effort, with it, but we're really not. We're removed from the active part of it, you might say. There's no political structure or anything. It's just an energy. That's always what it's been. Just about people, coming out and showing up, basically. So for the last 3 or 4 months, I think we've been following the energy of the earth, consciously, unconsciously, and Morgan and I have been playing our part, masculine, feminine, coming together, powerful activations, energies moving into the body. It's a very, very powerful time, and I think more and more people are coming around to it, and it's going to show itself soon.
Well, how do you feel about, definitely with this, I don't vote. I preface that. But what I noticed with this election, there's a major timeline shift. The energy shifted. Now, what do you feel like's on the horizon for us?
Well, I think, in a sense, it's whatever we want. So, in regard to, yeah, let's just be blunt about it. The American political scene, America period is like the central place, or has been, or whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot of eyes on it, but I don't really think that's where the story is. I think if we look at the communities and the places and the groups and the people that we've hung out with over these years, since let's say around 2012, I think there's this innateness, this you might say heartbeat, this energy flow or something that's been alive or been growing or expanding, and more people are consciously tapping into it. And I think the real focus is no longer on that external, looking for proof of our achievements or expansion or enlightenment, but to focus on what the universe has shown us every day, like in a meeting like this. I consider this a sacred meeting. Every place that we go, every moment that we spend in, some people call it vulnerability or transparency, but really being yourself with other people, and that energy being allowed to really illuminate. I think that's the kind of energy and experiences that are really not being talked about, because everything else is theater.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you feel like, because I feel this to some degree. I know my own personal journey, whatever. But people are starting to become more aware of what's going on within themselves, as opposed to what's going on outside of them.
That's a good question, because you know, the saying "as within without."
Mm.
It really doesn't I mean, I don't know. In my experience perspective, especially with this journey with my wife for the last 9 years,
Mm.
it's it happens at the same time.
Mm.
So the more that we latch on, let's say, to let's just be open about it, whatever, Republicans, Democrats, Israel, I mean, whatever, wherever you want to go with it,
Mm.
the less we're going to be inclined to really be in that connection and communication level with what you're referring to. So it's kind of happening at the same time. So like the soul's going, "Hey man, I'm here," and the humans going, "What the fuck is going on?"
Who are you?
but it's been going on long enough,
Mm.
and there are enough communities out there, and there's far more than Soulgy ever has been or is or will be. There's so many. And you can't really judge things by numbers of views and all that stuff. This is energy we're talking about. We're energy beings. And so, I mean, I think what your question really brings up to me is, where are the podcasts? Where are the conversations where people are talking about the movement of the energy, the feminine energy rising? We know by all narratives that the feminine energy has been suppressed, but we've been confused as men to think that that only applies to the women. It applies to the earth. It applies to all of us. So I think there's a subject matter that should be talked about, and I'm slowly coming out talking about it, and that is to allow the feminine energy to be seen, to be felt. It is the environment. If you look at an atom, it's 99.7 or 97% empty space. That's the mother. There's something, you know what I mean? There's something bigger than us, and it's coming in. Age of Aquarius. You can look at a bunch of different narratives. You can look at galactic narratives. You can look at astrology. You can look at this and that. But the reality is, I think that we're being given an opportunity to really, like you said, acknowledge what's happening inside of ourselves, which is the last point of separation, the masculine and the feminine. So that is, not some new age bullshit or some Far Eastern, philosophy. That's just what I'm feeling at this time in this present moment. And, I was thinking about today when I was walking on the beach, I was like, you really don't know what the fuck's going to happen. You know what I mean? So where are you? Who are you with? How do you feel? You know what I mean? Like it's your last day. Like every day is your last day, and then it becomes like it's the day. It's you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like you say, not knowing what the fuck's going to happen, and almost finding peace is being okay with not knowing what's going to happen, because obviously we tend to worry a lot about what's going to happen and this is going to happen, that's going to happen, what am I going to do then, what am I going to do, but finding peace, at least a part of it for me, is being okay with whatever happens, and we don't necessarily need to know what's going to happen most of the time.
Well, the thing is, we're never going to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the point of worrying about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all, I've said for years, and I don't know if it's accurate, but I have to be open to the possibility that maybe everybody's beating at the same vibration. It doesn't just, it just doesn't look that way. Maybe we don't, we're so immersed in this incredible, realm that we all created and had a hand in, that we got really disconnected. But, I think there's a lot of this intel and you might call it intuitiveness or telepathy or whatever that's happening to people, going back to your question, that I think is not being acknowledged. And I think there is a great value to acknowledging that, speaking that, talking about that. And doesn't have to be fancy rituals and this or that, but just having these conversations that are the real deal, that are not clickbait. Because if you really look at the essential core of conflict or whatever the case is, it's masculine and feminine. This is reality. And it sounds crazy to think that, our esoteric ultimate knowledge and awakening level and all that stuff is you know, like a fairy tale, but it's so physical and it's so human. So I think, you know, we're at a really interesting place. There's been a lot of forecast over the years about solar flares and about bifurcation and two Earths splitting and this and that, Dolores Cannon, blah, blah, blah. Energetically, these people were receiving something and something's happening. I don't know if there's going to be a separation. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So I think, you know, ultimately, what else can you do but be very present to the best of your ability with yourself and your environment and the people around you, et cetera, et cetera. And that sounds easy, but, you know, I think we've all found out over these last 12 years, it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's easier said than done. That's is the case with most things. How do you like? Do you notice? You were talking about the feminine side of things. What are some of the ways in which you've noticed that you've sort of brought out that side of yourself?
Well, I mean, I've been gifted, you know, blessed, you know, and I have to take ownership for that as an eternal soul that connected enough with this human being to be in an incredible relationship for 9 years, 9+ years. Through all this stuff that we're all going through. And I think sometimes we forget that, you know, go easy on yourself and go easy on each other because we're all going through the same damn thing, right? So we have this incredible multi-dimensional relationship from the first time that we connected in the physical on texting and such. And a lot of people know our story and this and that, but I would say, you know, that's where my perspective is coming from. And I'm seeing it with her in tandem, united in a very, how would you say it? Like pinpoint precision kind of way. Like the awareness is so acute at every level. I think going back to your question, that part of your question, what's happening inside of us, but we're both there, which makes it very, yeah, I guess in a way makes it easier, however you want to put it. You're doing it with someone else. But the point is, yeah, I've reached levels of, you know, again, not sounding like, you know, Eastern philosophies or practices or anything, where I'm actually, you know, we lay in bed every night, for example, we put our hands together. I have literally physically turned into her. I've literally physically been one being with her. We've had incredible sacred sexual, multi-dimensional, non-human, you know, sexual type shit happen at all levels with our multiple bodies. I mean, this is the kind of energy that's coming onto the earth, and everything else is a distraction. It's a distraction, and I mean, I'm not saying we're the only ones because I'm sure there's many people out there, and that's the whole point. Let's talk about it. Let's bring it out.
Yeah, totally. I've seen actually. There was something a little while ago. What you just said reminded me of it, but I mean, is what you experienced is not as permanent as this. But apparently, anglerfish, the ones that have the light sort of antenna with the light on, apparently when they mate, the male actually merges into the female, and they eventually become one. And I thought it was fascinating. So I don't know why I sort of brought that up, but just when you were saying, like, it sort of reminded me of that for some reason.
Yeah, that's like that Fibonacci spiral thing. You know what I mean? I mean, you see it. I mean, it's all there, and we've created this realm where we've got all these movies and stories and scripts, and you know, but we're in a place where the identity on a personal level, and everybody I think is going to be faced with it. I mean, what is apocalypse means in the Greek, you know, in the Greek origin of it is the unveiling. So do you think the unveiling is going to be all this out there outside of yourself or inside of yourself? I think it kind of happens simultaneously. But I think you go to within yourself, and that's not an easy discussion. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, to me, it's coming in so fast, like even with me and my wife. And we both been plugged into each other, plugged into what we've been feeling, these communities, Solargy, such and such, that narrative, that, you know, that openness, that seeking and, you know, bringing in the other parts of us, you know, the other parts of the universe, you might say, etc. And I'm at a point now where I feel like it's, you know, there's no in between. You're either going to wrap yourself up in these external distractions and distortions, because they're both, or you're going to focus on you, and in doing that, raise your frequency and attract things like it, and including relationships. And let's face it, everybody wants to have that relationship, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely.
So you feel like I think what's happening with a lot of people right now is, as you've already spoken about, it's this innerness that they're starting to get to know. And I think for a lot of men, at least from my perspective and what I've seen with other men, we're taught not to show emotions as much. But now all these things are starting to come up. So what's your take on that?
That's the absolute fucking truth.
Yeah.
So, for example, I may have very well been with Morgan for the last 9+ years. And then if you look at your 9+ years, that same period, you know, even though we know more and more every day, this is not linear. Okay.
Yeah.
But my point is that I've gone through, I feel the same, I felt what's happening to the masculine in mass, right? Probably what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And the way I see it, and it's not hard to see that this might be true or to be open to it, is that, you know, if you look back at 2012, thereabouts, and people woke up from the 60s, even the 70s, 80s, 90s, etc. But in around 2012, the women came out, the feminine energy came out and just said, you know, it's game time. And it wasn't easy because it had to go through the feminine in form, the physical female. But in time, and I know this because like with Sology, when Morgan came in and it really became something, which was like 2018, and we started really pumping out the shows. At that time, we'd only done 400, so we ended up doing plus 4,000. And what happened was there was a demographic, and it was like 95% female, 5% male. Now, it's a very open platform. There's no dogma, there's no doctrine, there's no book, there's no, you know, you do this or do that. It's just people coming together. And over time, that got down to 75-25. I haven't checked it in a year. But I think what I'm trying to say is that we need, in order for us to, if you really think about it, in any situation, a home, a government, a country, a religion, how many feminine Dalai Lamas are there and popes? You know what I mean? Like something's not right here, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing we have to do is recognize the fact that they brought this energy in and it had a physical representation of that energetic tidal wave. Now, in time, it put pressure on the masculine. And I think at this time where we're at, and I can feel it because I go through it and I walk on the beach every day for this, probably number one reason is to center myself as an individual, as a soul, and to just kind of get my shit together. And most of it is coming from what you're referring to. So to tie this up, yes. And I'll just tell you the download I got on the beach today was basically what I referred to earlier. You really don't know what's going to happen. You're already pretty much past not worrying about it. You're about to go to do this podcast, and it's not like whatever thousands you did before. I want to show up in my vulnerability. I want to show up transparently. I'm not saying I'm going to let you stick a microscope up my butt and look at everything today, but I want to be open. I want to emit and transmit the true masculine because, given all the suppression of the feminine, we were the soldiers. We were the ones that we got to go to work. We got to go to war. We're going to sacrifice this and sacrifice that. That is a program that's embedded into your physical body. How do you break out of it? Which is so ironic because you think of heaven, you think of nirvana, and you think it's all, bells and whistles and puffy white clouds. But this is the real work we're doing. And it takes the human being to do it. And I think this is where you're really going to see men rise. And it's going to take balls, and it brings tears to my eyes, as I talk to you, because it's a no bullshit deal. It's you and the universe. It's you and the mother, however you want to put it. It's like, you know what? You can present whatever you want out here, but you know the truth. And as a man, I can say that, and I'm still working on it.
I think we all are. I've just noticed in the last few weeks, maybe it's the astrology of the Aquarius thing and all these other things that are happening, but it's been a deep dive into self. Like even some of my services, like I've been thinking about changing them more like inner child stuff. I can bring people to like their inner child or angelic realm, whatever. But I'm like, does the spiritual stuff need to be such a forefront, or is it really just getting people more established in themselves? Like, I think
Good
it goes
question.
both ways.
Yeah. It's kind of like downloads, all right?
Yeah.
And we've all gotten downloads. And I always say this, and I'll keep saying it for as long as I live, because it was funny as shit, and I did it. You know, you get that first wake up on or about 2012, and you watched it happen for, you know, they get the wake up. I got the wake up. I'm like, hey, man, this is what's going on. Everybody, my family's not listening to me, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Those blasts, those downloads are always, I believe, always meant for the individual first and foremost. I mean, you can get into sacred union, and that's a whole other subject, where the physical and other bodies begin to, like that fish, they begin to, you know, share not just, you know, its energy, but yeah, I got so caught up in that vision, I forgot what we were talking about. But you brought up a good point. I remember. What the hell? What did you say? I forget.
Oh, like everyone's going inside now. Like they're starting to look inside of themselves.
Okay, connection. Okay, I got it. Yeah. So part of what I didn't explain properly, and this is again just where I'm coming from, in my personal experience, which you have a general overview. Soulology, an example being, I believe, you know, like as a man who 60 plus years old, has a corporate life, has all the stuff, you know, kids, the whole 9 yards, ends up in this movement, whatever you want to call it, that we call ascension. And I get involved with Soulology. I meet Morgan. It's a storybook thing. It's crazy. It's all the things that happen in these last 12 years, all the craziness, all the extremes of polarity and distortion, and the common sense that's coming in with the soul, which I think is really kind of what you're, you know, carrying. And, you know, I guess what I'm saying is that the feminine energy has made enough of a conversion that has required, in order to align for all of us as incarnated souls, to physically begin to actually move that energy out, create her channels, and illuminate. The same thing's happening to the man now. I walked away from Soulology, and that's where I was going with that. You know, common sense, the typical world, in my opinion, prior to 2024, why would you walk away from that? It was my livelihood. It was something I loved doing, blah, 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 blah. But I think we've reached these points where what I think you're referring to personally is where you're starting to re-examine why you do the things you do, why you call yourself what you do, who you're hanging around with. And that is very confronting and revealing, you know, and, you know, it's kind of like little mini dark nights of the soul. We're getting face to face with ourselves. And the only way to do that is really to give up these masks. And I feel like that, you know, the women have carried the load. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. It was just the way the equation was built. We were the soldier. It was embedded in us. They had the feminine intuition. So energetically, we kind of know this innately. Let's allow that to come out now. And a big reason for that is because when the males, as we are now, as we become more and more conscious of what we're going through, what's actually happening, you might say, as we align, our feminine voice is going to start coming through more and more, and we're going to have access to that higher, you know, that higher feminine intuition or whatever, the higher chakras. And it's going to become easier, but it's not going to be, you know, all bed of roses for, you know, the physical male. So there's, you know, I've gone through a lot of physical things, obviously mental, emotional, such and such. And had this reunification with Morgan and such. But yeah, I still feel them. I feel my brothers out there, and I really feel like that. Everything that we have, me included, identified as being a man, goes out the door. Out the door. You go down to nothing, like a bull that gets castrated and put out to pasture, and just start from nothing. And I'm not saying I've done this. I'm saying I'm doing this, and it's I don't know if I get collective information. I mean, my wife gets a lot of collective information, but when you look at the world as energy, and then you take into consideration what we haven't tried because of the herd mentality, and one thing they will say in these circles, the masculine energy is the creator. So it takes action, but it's not the old action.
I was thinking about instinct, kind of the natural instinct of a male and a female. And I was thinking, when I sort of look around and when I see the world, that I'm not saying in every case, because there are exceptions, but the general natural instinct of the woman, female, is to nurture, to look after, to raise children, etc., and to look after people and to be that sort of motherly figure. And the natural instinct as a man is to obviously protect and provide and that. How much do you think those instincts are sort of learned or and sort of programmed into us, and how much are they actually, or are they actually who we really are? If that makes sense.
Well, it does make sense. And I think like so many things that we're so many questions that we're getting answered now carry both truths. So on one hand, I don't know of any species in the multiverses that's born of a masculine. There may be, unisex ones. I don't know, but the mother is the mother. These physical vessels, these physical human beings, these souls in a human body have the ability, and many do, to carry a universe within themselves. So if you look at it energetically, it only makes sense. But yes, I do feel, just like with men, the women had to overcome that. They had to well, I'll speak in present tense because I believe there's some value in words that we have constructed. They have been, and will be continuing to shed the conditions of the, let's just say, the patriarchal impression imprinted upon them, to include being subservient, to include, I mean, you got to understand something. You couldn't get a credit card as a woman in the United States of America, the free country, bullshit. If you were a woman by yourself, if you were married, in 1975 is when they changed it. So think about the energetics of that. Now, the same thing can be said for the man. We've been imprinted hugely, right? And I think we've been less conscious because we've been more disconnected, right? And it's all coming much faster. And I think this is what Thomas is kind of, alluding to or feeling. And I think this is something that needs to be talked about, because we know one thing: competition, comparison, war, etc. I mean, call me whatever you want to call me, but I'm not going to live my life in that frequency anymore. And I believe the masculine energy in this world can set this precedent by the way they carry themselves moment by moment, and disconnect from all that bullshit, because that's all it is. That's the programming. The women see it. You don't see women leaders all over the world, but you're starting to. Mexico has a female president. There's a couple other countries. Not to say that that's, because it's energy again, but you can kind of see what's happening.
Something I found quite interesting. I saw something the other day. It was on another podcast. It was a clip. I think it was Rachel Wilson and Pearl, and it was just a clip of them, and they were talking about what you were saying about how women didn't have any rights or what have you, they couldn't do certain things. And they were saying that, I mean, I'm only going by what she says, I'm just taking her word, but she says that the reason why women couldn't vote or couldn't buy any land or couldn't do all the things that they can do now is because they didn't want to do them, because they didn't want the responsibility of having those things, having land, having to go out to work. They didn't want those things, which is why they didn't have them. It's not that they were taken from them or weren't allowed to have them. It was because they didn't want them, which is why they didn't have them.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I know the story
Yeah, I don't
is,
know if
I
that's
don't
true.
know. I know the story is in Iceland. I think it was like 15, 20 years ago. They had the women all stayed home and didn't go to work countrywide, or enough of them to pass legislation for equal pay or some other things. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think it's both. I think it's innate. There is a flow that occurs naturally. It's our natural nature. We've in this realm, whoever did it, whatever, that's the point. The point is the narratives don't matter anymore. They don't. Everything, if you look at I don't want to get on a soapbox again. I know I have been, but where's the last place we looked? Ourselves. And they always, I love that adage about our biggest fear is our fear of our own power.
Yeah.
We're not, I'm an eternal soul. What the fuck can this world do to me? But by the same token, what can I offer this world? You know what I mean? So at an individual level, we can call it love. It's something much bigger than that. I'd rather live, I'm 62, about to be 63, but if I was 21 again or 31, I would want to be doing what I'm doing right fucking now. And if the world blows up tomorrow, how am I going to even know? I believe I'm an eternal soul. I'll keep going on. There's a lot of evidence for that. But if I'm wrong, I want to know the difference. So I'm with the girl I love. I'm living in a cool place.
That's cool,
everything's kind of chill, and we want to serve like a lot of people like you want to serve, and I think there's some new inventions and new creations. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I believe that we're going to see. We think we're seeing a shift in terms of the internet's now being allowed to talk about all these things, and they're true, and this and that, and those narratives. But I think there's an underlying strong minority, at minimum millions, I don't know, of people that are tapped into this. I talked to too many people over the years. Dragons, angels, elementals, galactics, specifics, stories that line up. I mean, so I think that's a big part of it. And I think our masculine is the part of us that does that really stands up and says, I am soul, I am sacred union, I am the Trinity energy, and I'm in form, and this is badass. I don't know how long it's going to last, but let's make, hay before the sun goes down.
Yeah, definitely, man. And what if that is true about what I said earlier, then it shows to me that when they did decide that they wanted those things, then they took action against it, and it shows that we can do, when we decide to take action against things, we put our minds to things, and we want something, then we can go out and get it. And it's I feel like it was a good example of showing that when we come together and when we decide we want to do something, we can do it. It shows the creative power that we have as a unit. And when we decide to come together and focus on something, then we can do it. So I think it's a great like Lisa just said.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. If you look at the human evolution or history that we all are privy to, there's this element of revolution, revolution, of what you're talking about. I think the difference is now it's not the men and it's not the women. It's both united. That's the energy that we signed up for to try to achieve, I believe, in this physicality, in this myriad and hundreds of lives or whatever you're feeling. But we're right here, right now. And it's everybody, I think, can acknowledge that something is going on. You know what I mean? Like Why am I, there's so much evidence. And then you have these, including I would say the internet platforms that have risen out of the dissension of the CNNs and the blah, 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 and all the MC and, all that stuff. But again, I think it's something else. It's something that it's coming in so fast. It's so quick. It's so comprehensive that we barely have time to talk about it. But I believe the masculine energy is, I believe, stepping up and going to continue to step up. But it's a masculine energy that is in unison and equality with the feminine, his mother, his wife, his daughter. And it looks nothing like what we think masculinity is, including how big is our dick, and do I get an erection, and am I a badass in bed? And I mean, this is all energy. It's all the same pattern. And it's hard. It's hardcore to go, oh man, that's fucked up. You know what I mean? Like without, you go through the judging yourself and this and that. The women know this, the feminine energy within ourselves and in the world know this innately. They may not be conscious of it, but they know that we need, that we have to make this conversion or this transition is potentialized or available to us or accessible. And so she's there, and it's a new world. But I feel like right now, if you think of the world, like say a flower of life thing, and there's I don't know, whatever, 1,000 circles.
Yeah.
There are many, many of those circles lit up. And what that tells me is that those circles have built a microcosm of where we come from or what we have our potential to be, universal harmony, whatever you want to call it. And we're lighting up this grid. And so it's a kind of a localized existence, and that can include virtual connections like this. But it's happening, and it's I believe, I laugh when I and I don't mean this in a bad way, but well, what we said earlier, nobody knows what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen in the next hour.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Whatever you're doing right now, why are you doing it? Why are you wearing that badge? Why are you wearing that label? Why are you wearing that mask? Why are you with this person if you always have these, whatever relate, I mean, this and that, right? I mean, I think that's where we're being driven. I mean, you can say it's hokey, but it is what we might call love, being chill, being, like relaxed, like, chilling the fuck out. It's not the red pill or the blue pill. It's a chill pill.
Yes, I like that. It's kind of like letting everyone do their own thing, letting everyone get on with their life without having to interfere with anything, because you trust them that they're gonna make their own way, they're gonna find their own answers. And it's almost like you love it. You don't necessarily need to control someone to love them. You love them by letting them do that. You love them by letting them do what they need to do. Obviously, you could say that as long as they're not harming, anyone else or whatever.
That's it.
Common law, etc. But by loving them enough to not have to interfere in anyone's life and just trust, like we want to find our own answers ourselves. I think most do. Let them find their own answers too.
Very good. Very good. I mean, what is a soul? I am soul. I happen to be connected to this body right now. It's not all of me. It's not even close. But I'm able to have this blessing to be in this conscious body. So I mean, yes. Here. I mean, yes.
And try not to worry.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. If I'm a soul, if I run my life as a soul, what is that environment? What applies there? To me, it's perfect balance. It's 0 point field. It's soul highway. It's whatever you want to call it. It's a place we all have had these flashes and this and that. Or do I want to be overly tapped in at 51% or even 50% into my human story and all that stuff? Because the past isn't going to help you in the present. I mean, the future's not going to help you. And I believe that, the universal energy is driving us to this point of being very present. And I just want to say one more time, take it back to the masculine, because it's no joke. It's no joke. If you look at the masculine energy and don't make it personal, and you see, for instance, like troops, I'm not even talking war. I'm talking like, what we've seen in the last decade, what the universe showed us, what we've created, what we have projected. And you see, fucking thugs with, bulletproof vests and, all this armor and stuff going down, getting down on people that are unarmed and shit like that, and all the other bullshit. We know this stuff. We know enough. What's left? That's not going to change. What happens if we put our energy, especially now, as the creator, the masculine energy, put it into that trinity field, which serves me, serves you, and serves the collective equally? True. And I'd rather die like that and be stupid than live like, all stressed out, as I used to be. And, through work and gradually over time, as we all do, we can make the choices to sustain ourselves and expand from that new balance. And I believe that the masculine energy right now is our balls are scrunched and we know there's like an innateness in us that knows who we are, but it's so far out from what we've had and what we've been raised in, that it's very confronting, and it's quick work, and it can be a bit painful. But I would personally recommend to any man right now to take the time to deep dive within yourself, because it's the best thing you can do for the feminine, for the collective, for everybody, is to be in the best state you can be. And there's a lot of, you might say, good pressure on the masculine energy right now.
Totally.
That's just my opinion. That's my perspective. I don't know anything. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. And
no one does, I suppose.
Yeah.
No, I saw some of your older interviews. You were talking about the galactics and stuff. I have a heavy connection with the Syrians. Do you feel like this has happened on other planets? Like we're doing kind of the same thing they've done? Like with all the integration of different energies?
Okay. I feel like that, and I've always felt like this, that I feel like Earth is that place, that core, that present place, that presence, whatever you want to call it, the core. And the reason I felt that way, and a lot of it with the the work that I was blessed to do and talking to people, is that it's universally seeded. I know you hear there's 12 species that did our DNA, and there's all these different narratives, but I think in no uncertain terms, when you consider all the channels and downloads that people have put out there, not just in the last 12, 14 years, but also through history, because it's there. I think that it's I don't know, it's time. To me, it's like it's here, whether you you know what I mean. It's bigger than all of us, but it is us, right?
It is us.
And so I feel like that. When you hit me up a couple of months ago, we picked a date. I've got I've been on an incredible extended honeymoon for 3.5 months after 37 months apart. But we're still tapping in. I feel this energy, and I just feel like if I have an opportunity to express what I'm receiving, because I don't think I know more than anybody, but I feel like I'm tapped in, and I'm not the only person. There's millions of them out there, and I think in particular many men are starting to really light up. So if they hear these things and move past the traditional, let's say, man therapy of conflict resolution, there is no fucking conflict. I'm not going to be in a space where there's conflict. I'm not going to be in a space where there's competition. So it's a whole new language. It's a whole new way of life. And it's important because we have the opportunity to make this transformation with her grace and her holding space. And I mean that in all ways. And we'll come out the other side with a physicalized divine masculine energy in equilibrium, not just with the feminine within themselves and the other, but also with the mother, you might say.
Mother Gaia. I guess that's the Earth is referred to as Mother Gaia, isn't it? So I suppose that you could say that the Earth is the feminine. And I guess that's why Earth. I don't know if you're familiar with a guy called Max Spears. He's unfortunately not with us anymore. I like a lot of his stuff. I haven't watched all of it. It just comes up occasionally, and he says that the Earth is the heart, and that's why everything is done from the heart. And obviously, as an anagram of Earth, and it's all about control of the different. The chakras represent other dimensions or different whatever, and Earth, the heart, is kind of like the final battle or whatever, so to speak. But I like his stuff.
Yeah, I do too, because in his stuff he both has that whistleblower thing going on, but also that kind of truth frequency. You know what I mean? Like the one that but and I think I think at the end of the day, we're not reinventing anything. I believe the basic component is the Trinity. It only makes sense to me. There was one, there becomes two, their energy starts to come together, and there's the cycle. So I feel like that, it's been stated over and over and over again. We're only looking at 6,000 years of history and the downloads and channelings of people that have had in our own life experiences. So everything is code. Everything is code. Anything, it feels to me like, and I'm not just saying this about myself, my wife, I'm saying this about what I've seen. I haven't been on social media. We're not on that much this year, but I mean, I see where people are hitting kind of the same level. All right. I see where it's there if you look for it, but there's so much distortion out there, it's hard to find. But anything that we tie ourselves to at this point, from my perspective, even something like today, like, oh my God, I got this huge download after the show, and I just moved from one belief system to another belief system. I don't think we're going to be keeping any belief systems beyond the moment that we experience them. You know what I mean? Like the intel's there, the code's there. You're doing it in living color. You're doing it in the physical. How more impactful could that be? But tomorrow you wake up and it's a whole new day in a good way. And the only thing that kind of block you, and this is just me, block you from recognizing what the universe is showing you and kind of like moving into that flow is to be tied to something that happened before. It's not to take anything away from what's happened, our histories, or the whole 9 yards. But I can tell you this, for example, I absolutely am crazy about my wife, obviously, since you know what I mean. But the best day is today, and I feel like that when that happens for us as individuals, and then it carries to another person, then I think as time goes on, it'll get bigger and bigger groups, but it won't be like before. It'll be a united front. There'll be no leaders, and I know that sounds like anarchy and all that stuff, but we either walk the talk or we don't. We're either stuck on the grid as a human only, and oh my God, woe is me, and accept the fact that we're above all this. And we recognize the fear-based programming, we recognize all that stuff. We don't need to talk about it anymore. Let's talk about what's coming in and what it might take to make space for that to come in or really come out. I don't think anything's coming in us. I think it's actually coming out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And one of my absolutely favorite quotes is with regard to letting things go and not worrying about the past, etc., and just living for today and being able to change our beliefs. Is one of the quotes that I really like was tradition, because obviously tradition is peer pressure from dead people, and
I've seen that before. I don't know who said it. Yeah.
No, I don't know who said it, but I thought, that is on the money. because we feel like we have to do things or believe certain things just because other people believed them or did them, when that doesn't necessarily, that's not conducive to progression. If we just do stuff because they've always been done, because it
Right.
doesn't allow you to change.
So it's like taking, and you can do that. I mean, like say for instance, I go out and I start surfing and I become like a surfing fanatic and I learn how to surf, right?
Mm.
I mean, you can hang on to something and ride it and really be in alignment with it and such.
Mm. Mm.
But I think, what's happening is, or what I'm referring to, I guess, is that it's all information and it gives us contrasts, and we can reflect on that and see the different, the polarities and kind of, move forward from there because of the grace of that experience and make a new choice, and I think for for myself anyway, that all these choices are different. They're all atypical. They're not, they don't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for me to do what I've been doing for the last few months. It makes no sense if you take into account survival, fear, death, doubt. And maybe it's my age and I have that advantage of saying, you know what, fuck it. I was homeless for 2 years and that was a great gift. I didn't have a problem with that. That's how I woke up. But that was then. This is now. Where am I at right now? What's happening? What's coming in? And for me, and I do a lot of lucid dreaming. There are many times it feels to me like what we're moving into is like a lucid dream, like when everything slows down, where you ever see everything comes in more enhanced, where there's a telepathy to what you're seeing in symbology. And if you look at what's that dude, Jordan
Peterson?
No, the other one, the one that did all
Maxwell.
Jordan Maxwell. And if you look at what he talks about, people like him, the symbology is there. But it's not the symbology, the McDonald's signs and all that stuff. It's the old school shit that comes out like the Fibonacci spiral, that comes out in sacred geometry, that comes out in the patterns of everything that you look at. I've had an incredible day today. I walked to this spot on the beach. I've seen these oyster hunters, independent oyster hunters. They get a inner tube and they go out there with a bucket and they got this big net and they got this tool. And so every day I've seen more and more of it. Today I met 2 of them. And as I watched them and as I saw what they were doing, I also understood how the oysters grew. They attached themselves to these rocks, and I saw the whole continuity. And that's really there for us now. And I believe, that what we're kind of letting go of is all the things that came from the distortion. And there's many narratives and all that stuff, archons and all that. But the point being, we know enough to know that the one thing we haven't tried is ourselves. And I think that's a big, big opportunity and for men today, this moment, not next year, not whatever, right now. Let's do it now, because intentions are everything. And we had a lot of intentions that got hijacked to further this patriarch as good soldiers. And that's in our DNA and that's in our bodies, and that's hundreds of lives, whether you've been here once or not, because it's all connected.
Yeah, totally. And actually, speaking of oysters, I didn't realize, I only found out, I don't know, a couple of years ago or whatever, but apparently, and I don't know, I haven't sort of tried to verify this, but oysters, they're kind of like the garbage trucks of the ocean. They clean the water. And then pearls are so revered, so valuable, but they're actually, I guess, made from all of this shit that's in the ocean. So it's kind of,
and there it is. There it is right there. You know what I mean?
People say the world is going to shit, because you seem to hear that a lot.
There it is, though. I mean,
perhaps it's actually forming a pearl. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of
exactly. It's hilarious. It's like a coal to diamonds, or diamonds from coal, whatever. But that's it right there. Because and I get this again walking on the beach. I made a video for myself. I haven't put it up, and I don't know if I will. I don't think so. But I went to my spot. I was watching them before they came in, because I got to meet them once they come up and we got to know each other. And I was just sitting there, and I just took everything in, and I realized, again, in that moment, and it's hard to explain these moments, where where you're right where you're supposed to be. You're in tune with your body. My back hurts today, this and that. But for that moment, if I have that moment alone, I have those moments with my wife. We have those moments if we go out sometimes and meet somebody and interact. There's a continuity, there's a balance, there's a way of life, there's a feeling, there's a band of frequencies, there's a vibration, whatever you want to call it. And it's not bullshit. There's a lot of CIA documents that have been released from the 70s and 80s. They've known this stuff for years. But you can't take magic. You can't take, miraculous abilities and energy and not serve that Trinity anymore. Game over. It's game over. And I think a big part of that is being open as a man to move beyond this particular life only, to actually take myself out there and look at what, and I think you were talking about the feminine. How do you know, or how did you tap into your feminine, this and that at the beginning of the show? That's a real thing, man. And all you have to do is watch movies, from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and look at the way things are set up. Well, of course, she's in the kitchen. He comes home. He sits in a chair. I mean, it's the you know what I mean? So it's we've moved very rapidly technologically. Elon Musk talks about that. What would be in 20 years if we were playing with Pong in 1980 or 1970, and what's happening now? What'll be? But the real technology is us. And I hate to sound like a preacher, but the masculine energy in unison with the feminine, the mother, the partner, the child, the whole that energy is something that has been suppressed. And if you look at history, I'm a history buff, and I really like Robert Sepper at Atlantean Gardens. He makes hundreds of videos. They're really cool. He's known as the world's most dangerous anthropologist. But some of his work, you'll see early on Sumerian this way, that the goddesses were taken out. They were taken out of all the religions. They were, I want to say, stigmatized or categorized, or you know what I mean? So there was a reason that the Vatican says, "Our Father who art in heaven." Where's the mother? So like I said, there's enough information out there. We can spend our time thinking about it, fighting it, whatever we want to do, argue about it, whatever we want to do, or we can try to find some peace and happiness in the moment, because that's all we have. And I believe that energy is very inviting, very accessible, but we have to be clean. You don't get anything for free here. It's being, honest with yourself, and then, from there, expanding it with other people. And I know it sounds crazy. It sounds like, everybody's like, oh, there's going to be this awakening and we're going to have med beds. No, man, it's all right here. We just start doing what's natural in our innateness as souls. And the only thing we're fighting, if you want to say that, is our belief in that.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And my answer to that is, well, if you're right or if you're wrong, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I want to do what I'm doing. And I feel like that, it's what this is all about, or what age we're all bringing in, as some people say, why we came back at this time.
Yeah, totally. I hear you, brother. Right, we're coming up to the hour. Thomas, got any more questions or any more things?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, Todd, thank you ever so much for coming on.
Yeah, man. Let me say this. I will. I never did plugs, but part of my wife and I coming together, it carries many multi-dimensional. It's a multifaceted thing. Is this whole thing is happening for everybody, but ours has obviously been going on for a long time, being embodied for a long time. We're coming together with something, individually, together. Our work together is driving us in a direction, and I believe we'll probably put something out here in the next few days, where we work with couples work with individuals. She's been a practitioner for years, but so that's always there and kind of doing the work together. But around the areas that that carry and promote this energy, which basically is masculinity, femininity, sacred union, what some might call Christ consciousness and Christus consciousness. I mean, these things that were the pure code that was passed on to then have these offerings or engagements with people, be it virtually or in person. So it's not that, I guess what I'm trying to say is I was on somebody's show the other day and they're like, oh, so you're not doing Soulgy anymore. What are you doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm on a honeymoon. But no, we're doing it, I feel, in the same approach that what works in this new energy, which is to not force anything, don't really resist anything that comes at you, just try to stay in that middle. It takes work, especially if there's two or more, and try to find that thread, that Trinity thread, and put something out in harmony and unity with the universe. So I believe I'm mentioning this for two reasons. One, to just let people know, and two, to just say that I believe that many people are going to be coming out with new things, giving up what they've done, and coming out with something totally new. I believe that without the constructs of the old paradigm, to include the hard and fast of our masculine energy that got hijacked and distorted.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me say that, and thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, pleasure, brother. I was going to ask if there was anything that you wanted to, plug or whatever. So, but you knew that, obviously. So,
yeah, we don't have. Well, she's got a website, zeropointing.com. I just, I've everything's pretty much. I've not shut down everything. So there's a Soulgy group, but it's not mine. It's the people, man. They're still going on. But I think we'll put something out here, and we'll be doing it from our own point of origination, our own domain, and just building it, organically in a natural unfoldment to the best of our ability, which to me really describes, my intent, and I believe many others' intent each day when they go out now, because it's the convolution and the complications of all the different narratives, this, that, all the stuff is at some point you just got to say, it's me. It's me. What do I want to do? So what we want to do is put out what what resonates and aligns with us, as as we align with that third element. So be looking for that. And
sounds great.
I don't know if I'll ever host another show again, but I've been on 3 in the last 6 or 8 weeks, and I swear to God, they have been. I've literally had to prepare for them because I could feel the energy of maybe it's just me. I'm sure it probably is my own evolution or whatever, but almost like we're all finding a new voice.
Everything's us, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's
thank
cool,
you,
man.
thank you so much, and
thank you.
Shout out to Atlanta, Georgia, where he's at. Yeah. Hey, Jimmy, thank you very much, and I wish you the very best, and take care. Hasta luego, mi hermano.
Adios. That's about it.
Adios, Tomas.
Thomas, right, brother, what you got coming up this weekend?
Nothing, no, just my website.
No, just thomassawyer.com. Okay, cool. All right, man. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Au revoir.
Yeah. Oh.
Hold on. I've got to end it. 1 sec.